ago, I wrote a tutorial on frame popping or out of bounds images, where part of the image breaks out beyond the bounds of a frame. I posted that tutorial on the Facebook iColorama Formulas and Techniques group, and it was a series of screenshots and text. And so I thought I'd like to do a video tutorial of the same. So this task has to be broken up into 4 smaller tasks. The first is establishing the frame. The second is establishing the background, what falls outside the frame. The third is placing the picture within the frame. And the fourth is to actually mask out the portions that fall outside the frame. So I'm going to be working today with a photo of a cactus, because that is probably the easiest thing that I can possibly have fall outside the frame. And so we need to establish where the frame is, and we do that with a shape mask. iColorama for the iPad has rectangular shapes, whereas for the iPhone it does not. So I turn on rectangles, and I tap the New button. And there's my rectangle with the red around it. So that you can see where the changes take place, I do a preset gradient, and you can see that right now the changes take place outside the frame, outside the rectangle. So I'm going to invert that so that we have a frame on the inside. I'm going to lower the opacity so I can see my placement a little better. And I'm going to take the width in a bit. Okay, I'm going to bring my opacity back up and apply that white. That'll be the start of my frame. Now I'm going to deal with the background. So I'm going to invert the shape mask back, dealing with the outside. I'm going to do preset gradient first, and I'm going to put a black one in there for right this second and save that off. That creates a mask that I can use later to put a shadow behind the frame itself. So I'm going to save that, but not apply it. Now, my background, I want to be a two-tone gradient. I'm going to pick some colors from the actual image itself. So a blue for the top and a green for the bottom. Sometimes that pick tends to make it disappear. I'll just tap on the preset again, and then we see it there. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to add a couple of textures to it. First, a noise in overlay mode. Increase the size, take down the intensity, take down the opacity, just to where I begin to see that differentiation. I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to apply a paper. Let's try that. There. I'll try that one. Take the size down a little bit, and we're going to take the opacity down. I'm going to apply that. Now we'll begin to work on the frame itself. So I invert that rectangle shape mask, and I'm going to put in a wood texture. Come down here and pick out the wood texture. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to take the size down a little bit. I'm going to take the intensity down. And I apply that. That will be my frame. So now I've got to work with what's inside the frame. In order to do that, I've got to make the inner rectangle of the frame, and I squeeze down that rectangle. You can see the red square, and I'm also going to reduce the width so that it looks more even all the way around. Now I'm going to put the image back in to that square. So I'll go back to my photos, go back to that same cactus image, and put it in the center. I apply that. Now I've only got to get the outside, the part of the cactus that falls outside the frame. So I don't need a shape mask. I'm going to remove that. I'm going to go over to my brush mask. I'm going to do an effects blend, and I'm going to bring in that same image again of the cactus. Falls over everything, but we're going to invert the mask and paint in. I'm going to change the brush. The brush is normally a very soft edge. I want something that's not quite as soft an edge. And I'm going to lower the size of it. I'm going to zoom in to where I can work on this. And I start painting in the cactus. Then I'll want to switch over to erase and get rid of that I went over too much. And it helps if you turn on show. Oops. Let's go back to paint and get that portion right in there. Go to erase and fill in around that so that I have a more accurate edge. I even went too far right here. I want to bring it back in. All right. Now, before I apply this, I'm going to save off the mask. I'm going to export it. And that's so that I can establish a shadow behind this portion of the cactus that goes over the frame, as well as the mask that I saved earlier that helps me establish a shadow for the frame itself. I'll turn off show and just hit apply. So now we have the background, we have the frame, we have the picture inside the frame, and we have the part that falls outside the frame. So now all I'm going to do is remove that brush mask and go back and establish my shadows. Effects, shadow, I go to photos, I go to the one with the square. I'm going to move it down, move it over, take the intensity down, take the opacity down a bit. I'm going to apply it. Next, I'll do the same thing, but with the cactus mask. And you'll see that it falls down into the image there. So we're going to use a brush mask to paint that part of it out. But first of all, let's do the moving of the shadow and the reducing of the intensity and opacity. Now when we zoom in, we can use a brush mask to get rid of this shadow that falls within the frame where we don't want it. I'm going to apply that, remove the brush mask, and there we have our image. So, 4 portions, 4 tasks within this. You're establishing the frame, You're establishing the background, you're establishing the image within the frame, and then you're establishing those parts that go outside the frame. I hope this was worthwhile to you. Until next time, enjoy.